Over its long 40-year history, the Zelda series has plenty of options for what could be considered the greatest video game ever made. But there's one answer that shines brightly than the others: The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It is the single video game that has defined the game industry for nearly 30 years at this point. Remember when Dan Houser of Grand Theft Auto fame stated in 2012 that anyone who makes 3D games who says they've not borrowed something from Mario or Zelda on the N64 is lying. Or when the creator of Dark Souls, Hidaka Mizuyaki, said that The Legend of Zelda became a sort of textbook for 3D action games. Ocarina of Time was also cited as an influence on Shadow of the Colossus, CD Projekt Red's Witcher trilogy, and even the very concept of the seamless open worlds featured in the Final Fantasy games. Such a game is truly worth its title of legend. What Shigeru Miyamoto and those hard-working developers at Nintendo were able to accomplish has influenced the way we play video games even to this day. So of course, it's getting a remake. We haven't gotten to see much of the remake just yet, just this tapestry which correlates with the events of Ocarina of Time's opening, narrated by none other than the Deku Tree.
These forest dwellers were called the Kokiri. Each had a fairy companion, and they lived out their innocent lives in these woods. However, there was one particular boy who did not have a fairy.
We then transition to a shot of Link in a troubled sleep as the Triforce glows on his hand. The sign of the chosen hero established in Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. So it's not lore breaking. Finally, we get a look at the new logo. Reminiscent of the Breath of the Wild logo. We also get a confirmation that it will be out this year, which, I mean, Zelda and release dates you never know, but I think it's safe to say the remake will probably not be delayed. But regardless of all of that, it's near the end of August, and besides this small teaser, we don't exactly know what this is. My gut feeling tells me this is probably going to cost $60 and be similar to the Star Fox remake that came out earlier this summer. A remake from the ground up, yes, but more or less the skeleton of the same game. But on the other path, I want to see Ocarina of Time reimagined from the ground up. Same plot, same characters, yes, but fundamentally speaking, this game needs to be greater, grander to fit into the modern day. So in this hypothetical new Ocarina of Time, here's what I would implement if I was in charge. We're going to start with a few changes that I think have a very good chance of actually being in this game. And that is 1, voice acting, and 2, an updated official soundtrack. Going back to the teaser trailer for a brief moment, the narration of the Deku Tree essentially confirms voice acting. I know the voice acting of modern Zelda can be ridiculed at times, and listen, it's not perfect by any means.
And stop following me!
But I think they have the right idea on how to handle it in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Major story cutscenes will get voice acting. The rest of the game's dialogue will be handled by text. I think this is the perfect recipe to avoid repetitious voice lines. Like for instance, you'll be playing an open world RPG for hundreds of hours, you'll stop by a town, and you're just flooded with the same exact voice lines you've heard for 200 hours at this point.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
So if OOT has voice acting, I think that's the way to handle it. As for the updated soundtrack, yes, please. The opportunity to hear some of gaming's most iconic tunes reimagined with modern hardware, it's almost going to be worth the price of admission alone. Next up, I want to talk about the Hyrule Field problem. We all remember our first time leaving Kokiri Forest, a small, confined bastion of innocence. which is then contrasted by a first look into Hyrule Field, a beautiful vista of greenery going on as far as the eye can see. I think this is the very moment that a lot of us had our imaginations captured by this game. The fact that the world was so big and the graphics were so advanced for the time, and nearly 30 years later, it's probably the area of the game that's aged the worst. It's the single piece of criticism I think that sticks to this game the hardest. And you've heard it all before. There's nothing going on in Hyrule Field. It was primarily designed for Epona, even though you don't get her until like halfway through the game. And did I mention there's nothing going on here at all? It's the worst of both worlds, because it's not as large and expansive anymore as a game like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, nor is it as compact as its direct sequel, Majora's Mask. And what is there is full to the brim of secrets and collectibles. So, what's the solution here? Should the overworld balloon in size like Breath of the Wild? Probably not. I don't think that's in the cards anyways. Should the world be shrunk in size? I don't think that's the answer either. Now, I would love it if they just nuked this whole thing and started over again. It would give us something totally new to explore. But to counter that with what I think is going to happen and a more realistic outcome, I would give young Link access to Epona after you learn her song, just to sort of speed up travel time as young Link. Another way to alleviate the empty overworld would be to add more collectibles, kind of like what Link's Awakening did on Switch. Yes, I just reused a slide from my Link's Awakening video. What are you gonna do about it? Number 4, down with the JPEGs. Also, can we expand the castle market? Probably the second thing that has aged worse about this game is the castle market. The background is composed entirely of really low-res JPEGs with the N64 models slapped on top. Now obviously the remake is not going to reuse these JPEGs, but I'd honestly like to see the market be a little expanded. I mean, the little hamlet of Kakariko Village is like 10 times bigger than the castle market. More accessible buildings, more shops, more goofy little characters, most importantly of all, more shit minigames! Number 5, dungeons and restored dungeons. Also the return of some beta content. Ocarina of Time has some of the most iconic and best dungeons throughout the series. They've aged really well, even if some of the solutions to the puzzles can be a little repetitive. Hey, step on this switch. Hey, shoot this eye switch. By no means does it ruin any of these dungeons, but if they're gonna change anything in the dungeons, I'd like to get some more creative puzzles. It's one of the reasons why I like the Deku Tree so much. That one puzzle where you have to jump from the very top of the tree in order to break the web at the bottom. It's just so freaking cool. I just wish there was more creative solutions like this in the game. But even if they keep the dungeons the exact same, what about bringing back some of the cut dungeons from this game? Cut from development of Ocarina of Time was a wind temple, an ice temple, and a light temple. Now, I don't think the wind temple got very far into production, and something like the ice cavern is probably close to what the ice temple would have been anyways, just on a smaller scale. But what really fascinates me is the light temple. God, this just reminds me of those old YouTube videos of people trying to convince you that light temple was real. Like, thanks, asshole! I really thought you could beat the Running Man by trying to find the unicorn fountain. Of course, after you unfreeze Zora's domain. I always kind of found it jarring that you're just given the light medallion as soon as you become an adult, especially when every other medallion in the game requires conquering a dungeon. What would the theme and contents of this dungeon even be? I'm not exactly sure. The Spirit Temple already handles a lot of the light-based puzzles with the Mirror Shield. Maybe in this new OOT, this light temple could be like the grand finale of the medallions. And maybe after finishing the boss, whatever that would be, and you meet up with Sheik, and he gives you the light medallion, which then could be turned into the light arrows. Haha, see? Oh, this game design shit isn't too hard at all. I hear people get paid to come up with ideas like this. Yeah, I just gotta get over the crippling social anxiety. But I know exactly where you could put it. Right where the Temple of Time is in Twilight Princess. Just a fun echo to one of this game's direct sequels. Now, does any of this have a chance in frickin' Narnia of happening? Oh, hell no, they're not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I'd be curious to think what you guys think, though. Leave a comment if you think I'm, like, totally crazy or if I'm onto something. Number 6, more restored beta content? Admittedly, I'm a little mixed on this one. Ocarina of Time is already a game that struggles to make use of its whole arsenal. The Space World 97 fan mod is a treasure trove of being able to see this in action. I could talk about this thing for freaking hours, but you know what? I'm gonna try to keep it brief. Here is the original inventory screen for Ocarina of Time. As you can see, things look quite different. I mean, it's easy to notice a lens of truth that just looks completely weird. An Ocarina of Time with the 3 spiritual stones in, and a hookshot that looks more like the one from A Link to the Past. But I mean, none of that's really interesting, except to frickin' weirdos like me. First up, these are the landmines. You put them down and wait for them to go off. A very interesting item, yes. Vastly prefer bomb chews. They're way more involved, way more aggressive, and way more fun to use. As with landmines, well, why not just use a regular bomb? There's the hoarse grass whistle, which is pretty much just Epona's song as a singular item. Ow! Fucking landmines! But the real interesting thing about this beta were the medallions. Instead of just being end dungeon rewards, each medallion has a use. Some were repurposed into other items, like the fire medallion being essentially Din's fire, the force medallion being Pharaoh's wind, and like I said earlier, gives credit to the whole wind temple connection. And Nehru's love was not given to the ice medallion. Instead, the shadow medallion would surround you in this black diamond and then shroud your surroundings in darkness. And now for the medallion powers that were outright cut from Ocarina of Time. The water medallion gives off this ice attack, which, again, is a connection with the ice temple. The light medallion does this. Oh my god, but last and certainly not least, the spirit medallion. The Spirit Medallion turns you into a fairy! The return of the very spell from Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. God, this is so freaking cool. I just can't even imagine what type of puzzles they wanted to design around this thing. Man, an idea like this would work in an open-air Zelda game as well. I mean, this is how you could fix the Hyrule Field problem right here. No, I want to keep being a fairy! But if that wasn't enough, every single one of these medallions can be combined with the bow to make an elemental arrow. Fire medallion gives you fire arrows, the ice medallion gives you ice arrows. The spirit medallion gives you something that looks close to the light arrows. Then we get into some weird ones like the forest medallion giving you wind arrows, the shadow medallion giving you these arrows of darkness. Like seriously, what would you ever use these for, I wonder? But I know what you would use these for. The light medallion originally took a more silverish glow, making the arrow a silver arrow. I don't know why the transition from silver to light arrows even happened in the first place, but it started in this game. And I think that's all of the major items that were cut from Ocarina of Time's arsenal. But like I said earlier, Ocarina of Time in its final state already kind of struggles to make use of every single item on a consistent basis. So ballooning the inventory to include landmines, the horse whistle, and all the medallions, yeah, I'd only include this if you were just making a whole new game. Alright, I think we're about done here. I have a few more minor things I could add, like maybe less copy and paste grottos splattered across the overworld, maybe a little Easter egg hint hint wink wink towards the downfall timeline if you lose the final battle against Ganon. But I think I covered all the major things I would change. And when I say that, I don't want to make it sound like I hate this game. This was the first video game I ever played, at the age of 3 years old, on my Nintendo GameCube, The Legend of Zelda: The Collector's Edition. Seriously, that was a really good collection. It even had a little demo of Wind Waker when that game was coming out. But in my analysis, I try not to be blinded by nostalgia, even when it comes to my childhood favorites. Ocarina of Time is a game that is often called the greatest game of all time, but as it turns out, even the greatest game of all time is not immune to the drawbacks of pure age. We're probably going to get to know more information about this game in the coming weeks, and like I said earlier, more likely than not, this is going to be a $60 remaster with maybe some things trimmed along the edges, but more or less a one-to-one remake. And considering we already got one of those like nearly 15 years ago at this point, I mean, is there really much appetite for that? I think the fine folks of Nintendo have a real opportunity here. Ocarina of Time deserves its chance atop the spotlight again. I guess all I can say is, go bold with this one. Expand and refine the game we all love so much. Tackle the things you couldn't do the first time due to hardware constraints, like being able to use your sword on horseback. Do that, and you may, just may, accomplish the elusive task of satisfying every Zelda fan, arguably for the first time since this game came out in 1998.